برم خونه بی زحمت که فلان کنم بگید که اینا تلفن ساعت بشه.
بابا نمیام. نه ما خود بچه ها هستن میبریم. خدا سلام برسید. رحیم یه بسته شده ببینیم
تو چون داشت تو باشه.
سلام.
من میام
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Recite a second salawat please.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
MashaAllah, the salawat I'm getting is a good salawat. It doesn't indicate that it's month of Ramadan. So let's recite the third salawat even louder.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
It's the day of Friday, so happy Eid on that part. And let's remember the Imam of time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala Farajul Sharif, by your fourth salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And let's not forget the marhumin and marhumat, all the beloved one and deceased one. And let's recite your fifth of salawat, your loudest of all of your salawats.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
First and most of all thanks and all praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this chance, this opportunity, this tawfiq to actually experience the holy month of Ramadan. I am sure that everybody, every single brother and sister who's sitting at this majlis, they know how grateful and how blissful the month of Ramadan is. When you look at the seerah, when you look at the lifestyle, when you look at the wishes of a lot of scholars in religion, of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we see that one of their main concerns was yet to experience another Shahrul Ramadan, another month of Ramadan. Meaning that the space and the status and the position of this month is so high that it will actually become their wish to actually experience this month again. And there is this famous hadith from the Holy Prophet, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in which he says, if you would actually understand and acknowledge and recognize the value of this month, every single one of you would have wished for the month of Ramadan to be extended and to become the entire year. Again, talking about the position and the status of this month. So before I actually get to the topic, right? The main topic which was announced was the topic of tafsir and the topic of eschatology. Eschatology means talking about resurrection and talking about ma'ad, right? So now, why do we want to talk about this topic? So today, inshallah, I will give you an outline of what, inshallah, we'll be discussing for the future nights. And then from tomorrow, I actually start on the main topic. So when we talk about tafsir and eschatology, why tafsir and why eschatology? Why in the month of Ramadan? So what's specific about month of Ramadan, right? We know the fasting is obligatory, right? So what's in the fasting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it obligatory for us, right? What's the meaning? What's the definition of fasting? Why do we have to do siyam? Why do we have to do the sawm for the entire month, right? What's in it for us? Because we know the obligatory acts in Islam, that means it's wajib, so we have to do it. But we have to do it has this sense, this meaning of a negative intonation to it. Because we tend to think that we have to do it, it brings that negative sort of feeling to us. That idea, we just do it, just get it over with, right? Whereas when you look at the religious teachings, it's completely opposite of this, right? So if you want to benefit the more out of this month, or inshallah the most out of this month, you have to go back and you have to do a review on why, number one, fasting has become obligatory in this month, number one. Number two, what are the different definitions of fasting that we have, right? Number three, what are the, for example, specific points in which makes the fasting even more efficient, right? And number four, or actually the last part, is to prevent from those danger points, those danger zones, in which would actually make our fasting get closer to the avoidance or get closer to that limitation of becoming batil, right? So this is what inshallah we'll be talking about for tonight. And from tomorrow we'll start the topic of eschatology. Why? Again, we go back to the purpose of creation, right? We go back to the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us this bounty of being alive. Why are we alive? Are we alive just to grow up, go to school, get educated, find a good job, find a good house, find a good car, find a good spouse, have a good family? Is that it? And then at the end it just goes out of the picture? If that was the case, it would become completely a meaningless, a redundant, right, life cycle, right? So what gives the meaning to the life as we're living every day? That's the topic of eschatology. Meaning that if there is no resurrection, if there is no ma'ad, if there is no accountability, if there is no day of reckoning, everything we do, it just becomes a circular motion without no meanings. So that's why actually I picked the topic of eschatology for the month of Ramadan, because they say a mu'min, a believer, when he or she does something, he or she does not do it just because of this material world. Because this material world, no matter how much we try for, it will end, right? It's just a temporary, just breeze through as we speak of, right?
Go speak there, please.
So let's recite another salawat. So when a believer, when a mu'min or a mu'minah, when he or she makes a decision, they make a decision based on the hereafter. They see the dunya, but they pick the hereafter through the dunya, right? Which is why, again, the topic of eschatology becomes very important. Because that main point, which actually helps us to constantly focus on the hereafter, is the topic of eschatology. So that's for tomorrow, inshallah. But what about today? So what do we know about the month of Ramadan? Right? I'm sure everybody has at least read through the last sermon of the Holy Prophet in the month of Sha'ban. It's famous as Khutbatul Sha'baniyah. I asked Brother Hussein, he was saying that was the topic that was being discussed by Brother Hajhani here for the past couple nights, if I'm not mistaken, right? So everybody's familiar with that khutbah, right? That khutbah is very famous, and it actually gives a very comprehensive, detailed information about this holy month of Ramadan, in which the Prophet of Islam refers to the month of mercy, right? The month of Rahmah, the month of Maghfirah, the month of forgiveness, right? The month in which days of the month are the best days throughout the year, right? The month in which the nights of this month are the best nights of all the nights throughout the year. Even the hours of this month are the best hours, right? It is the month in which your prayers will get accepted. Your supplications will get accepted, right? Even when you are sleeping, as if you are doing ibadah, as if you are doing a worshipping act, right? So this shows that this month has a great amount of importance, right? From other aspects, the Holy Prophet talks about the shayateen, right? The evil forces being captured and being put in jail and prison during this month, right? So how is this, or what does it mean? Because somebody may actually ask this question. If that's true, if the shaitan has been put in custody, right? If all the shayateen, al-insi wal-jinn, all the human and the jinn, evil forces, if they all have been captured and put aside, then why do we see some people commit the sin in this month, right? We say yes, we have to talk about this a little bit more thoroughly. First we look at the statistics, right? statistically speaking, during the month of Ramadan, the crime rate becomes lower, right? But there's still some crime rates, right? So why is, we still have crime when we have in a hadith that, all the evil forces and all the, satanic forces have been put in jail? We say that's simple, because the person still has the choice, right? Or for example, in other hadith, we say when the Imam of time, Hazrat Sahaba inshallah, when he appears, when the zuhur happens, what does he do? He goes and he takes out shaitan once and for all. So there is no more shaitan, right? But then again, people commit sins at that time as well. So how does it do it? Isn't this like a contradiction? The same answer, the same reply actually comes about. It's like, no, there is no contradiction here. The choice that we have remains. As long as we have the choice, you have the choice to choose between good and bad. So what does shaitan do in this equation? Right? He's not actually forcing us. He's not twisting our arms. He's not telling us, if you do not do this one, I'm going to, for example, do this and this to you. No. All he does, he tempts us. He uses whispers, he uses different means, right? Just to make that temptation in us and make it stronger in our will, right? So as long as we have that choice, this choosing between good and bad remains. So in this month is the same story. Yes, the shaitan and all of his forces and powers are all limited to the bare minimum. But how this limitation actually takes place in actuality? Does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a jail, like a physical jail, right? And it says, oh shaitan, in this month go to that jail? Or no, it has actually a meaning to it. When we say the shaitan is like, being in custody, being like put into prison in this month, it means that by the actions that we do, we limit the ways of him entering our will. How? What do we do in this month? Right? We fast from the sunrise, from the sunrise to the sunset, right? The topic of fasting, the very bare minimum of fasting is what? To prevent ourselves from consuming food and beverages, or food and liquids, right? So they say the entry points of shaitan into any single soul, it can happen through 7 different, entry points. One of the most important one is the way of what we consume, the food that we eat, or the water that we drink, right? The more of that energy that we have as we speak of, the more of a chance for the shaitan to come and do whispering to us, right? So that's why they talk about the different levels of fasting. They say don't remain with the general level. This, pertaining ones from consuming food and beverage is the very first level. Recite salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Some like to laugh, so if you like to laugh, recite the third salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So as we claim to be the Shias of the Ahlul Bayt, the Shia means the follower, right? And this follower, there has to be some actions involved. I cannot just go around and say, oh, I'm the Shia of Amir al-Mu'minin, I'm the Shia of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, I'm the Shia of Abdullah al-Hussein, right? At the same time, my actions speak of a different thing. No, the follower has a definition. When we have this label of being a Shia of the Ahlul Bayt, or the follower of the school of the Ahlul Bayt, we have to make sure that this following actually takes place. Otherwise, we're just like an ordinary person, right? And I'm sure you guys all have heard of the incidents in which a group of people who had the same label, the Shias, they would go to an Imam al-Ma'soom and they would ask permission to enter their house, but they would get denied just because they used the term Shia for themselves, right? So inshallah we can become part of the true Shia, the true followers, by actually following the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. In this month, recite the salawat again.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
So when it comes to the levels of fasting, the very first level is that general level, which we talked about, pertaining one from consuming food and beverages. What about the second level, which we say it's a little bit more particular, it becomes a little bit more specific, right? In the second layer, we talk about controlling one's language, one's hearing, one's vision, one's every part of the body in terms of fasting. And that actually falls within the meaning of Sawm or Siyam. right? Sawm in Arabic means to pertain yourself from something. From what is what makes it a different definition. Sometimes I pertain myself from eating food. Sometimes I pertain myself from drinking water. Sometimes I pertain my language from speaking foul words, right? Sometimes I pertain my vision from looking at a sinful scene, right? Sometimes I pertain my hearing aids, my ears from hearing to a sinful act or sinful music, right? So this topic of Sawm or fasting in this month is not only limited to the food and beverages. So usually these 30 months of Ramadan is what we should actually look at it as Muslims, as a new year for a Muslim. What do we usually do on New Year's? We come up with this New Year resolution, right? We say, okay, this is a plan I'm going to have for this year. We have this to-do list that all of these goals are being set for 2019, 2020, right? And I'm going to go one by one. In Islamic terms, for the believers, it should be actually the month of Ramadan. Why the month of Ramadan? Because the month of Ramadan is like a fresh start, right? You guys all have heard the riwayahs in terms of how much of the sins will be forgiven in this month. When the sin is forgiven, right, that means it gets cleaned out, it gets wiped out, right? But do we want to go to the hereafter with the empty file, with the empty report card? Or do we want some A's on it? Do we want some A pluses on it, right? Do you want something on it, something good? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the sins, when He clears out all the sins, what's there to remain? We don't want to go there empty-handed, right? We want to go there to something. So doing this repentance, asking for forgiveness is there, right? To have a fresh start. So if you have the fresh start, you have to have a plan to make the most out of it. Am I correct? Right? So this month of Ramadan, it turns to 30 days of fresh start and continually practicing this fresh start every day, right? If you look at the supplication of this month, one of the main du'as that is common in every day is asking for maghfirah, asking for repentance, asking for forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Constantly we're asking for forgiveness and forgiveness and forgiveness. Why? Again, we want to go back to what? I'll give you a hint. At the end of the month of Ramadan, we have the Eid prayer. What is that Eid prayer called? Eidul Fitr. Fitr comes from Fitra. Fitra in English, they usually translate it to the innate nature of people. Same innate nature, which it's the same in every single person that you can label them as human. It does not change, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that to every single person, right? So during this month, we constantly we're asking for forgiveness, we're asking for tawbah, we're doing repentance. Why? We're going back to what? To our innate nature, to the pure innate nature, right? Because the innate nature is there, it's been actually created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it's calling us towards what? If it's created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who does He call us for? He calls us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And that's why by the act of repentance, by the act of asking for forgiveness, by the act of asking for Allah's mercy, we constantly getting closer and closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. That's why we call it a fresh start, right? So it's a fresh start in which to actually obtain this perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being in our lifetime, in every second, every minute and every hour of our lifetime. And that's how the mu'min actually lives, right? When the mu'min lives in this life, he does the same thing as an unbeliever did, right? So what's the difference? He goes to work, an unbeliever goes to work, right? He gets married, unbeliever may get married. He goes to school, graduates, unbeliever goes to school and graduates as well. So what's the difference between a mu'min, a believer, and a disbeliever, right? You say it all falls within the same perspective. When he goes to school and he goes for education, he sees that in relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sees that Allah has given him this lot of potentials. For example, He has given him the mind, He has given the healthy body, right? In order for him to pursue knowledge, to pursue sciences, to pursue advancement in terms of becoming an expert, right? Why? To benefit the society. Everything goes in relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Versus a disbeliever may have a different perspective, right? It could be a lot of different purposes. For example, where some people go and attend university, right? The same thing applies for getting a job. Some people, when they want to choose a career, once they want to choose a specific field that they want to work in, the very first thing they consider is what? Is the salary. How much does it pay? Does it come with benefits? Does it have a retirement plan? Like how many, like in the days of, sick works can I take in this job, right? How much how much off days I have in this job, right? All this material aspect of the job before they actually enter the job. But when the believer looks at the job, how does he look? He looks at the job and it says, by doing this job, how much more can I benefit others, right? For example, if he's stuck between 2 options or 3 options, he looks at every single one of the jobs and says, okay, in this one I can help this amount of people. With this job I can help this amount of people. With the third job I can help Y amount of people, right? So now he makes the decision based on how many more of the people he can actually benefit by just going to work every day. So the work becomes an act of ibadah, right? Act of worshipping, serving others, right? So this is the difference, for example, between a mu'min and a disbeliever, right? So going back to the month of Ramadan, right? We have it says, هُوَ شَهْرٌ دُعِيتُمْ فِيهِ إِلَىٰ ضِيَافَةَ اللَّهِ. It's the month in which you all have been invited for this party of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning the host is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this going and attending this ceremony, going and attending this celebration, going and attending this party, I don't like to use the term party, but for ziyafa, is there any better term? Let me know, right? For attending this celebration, there are conditions, right? When the host is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can anybody get into this ceremony? Some may say yes, because Allah is Arhamur Rahimin. No question about that. Yes, everybody's invited, meaning that the call is general. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, right? It means that fasting is not only for us the Muslims. No, it was actually obligatory act on the previous faith before us, on Christianity and Judaism, and even in other religions, which they have the title of religion, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, right? We have the topic of fasting. Meaning that this, general speaking, like fasting, pretending one's from food and water, is not only specific to the Muslims. And the call, some may say, it says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, right? Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in the Quran, when we talk about it, is usually when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the believers. It does not say, Ya ayyuha nas, right? When it says, Ya ayyuha nas, we say it's general. When it says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, it's talking to the mu'mineen, right? But we say, not slightly. Yes, it is talking to mu'mineen, but Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, right, has this second part into it, meaning those who actually announce or claim that you are a mu'min, right? Because what do we do to become a mu'min? A lot of times they ask us this question, like, what should I do to become a Muslim? What should one do to become a Muslim? They have to recite the Shahadatain, right? So 2 phrases, the bare minimum is the 2 phrases, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. So if I say this, that's it? That's it of it? I become part of Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, right? So the meaning of Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, it means those who claim to be believers, right? Those who say, oh, I want to become a mu'min and I want to work for it. I want to struggle for it. I want to work on this journey. So every day that goes by, you have to have this accountability. Where am I? Where am I standing? And how much closer have I got to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So they say one of the resolutions for month of Ramadan for mu'min is to do what? To make a comparison between this month and the previous month. How much of this spirituality sense has been activated in me since last year, right? Do I find myself more interested in attending prayers or in recitation of the Quran, in attending the majalis, right? In doing good in general speaking, or no? Do I find myself more in the sense of criticism and doubts and questions, right? Or even worse than this, do I find myself in positions that I don't care about whether I do good or bad, right? So we always have to have this comparison for ourselves in this month and the previous year. How did I feel previous year and how am I feeling this year? If there's a problem, we have to resolve it right at the beginning of this month. Because as we get closer and closer and closer to the end of the month, that's like the last call, right? So we have to be ready before actually we reach, for example, the last 10 days of the month, right? So always have this accountability, this review of the actions, this review of the moods, right, that we are in, and try to find the points that you're missing out on. And this is one of the things that they usually recommend at the beginning of the month of Ramadan, to make sure, number one, on your own, right? Forgive everything that has been done to you. All of the haqqul nafs, right? Don't hold any grudges against anybody. Why? They say because you want to start a month with this pure heart. You don't want to carry along everything that you have from the previous months or previous years. Right? You already have so much to bear every day that we're living. Why do you want to carry out the entire history of yours in this blissful month? No, let it go. Leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if it's haqqul nafs, right? What about the haqqullah? If you have the qaza prayer, if you have qaza fastings, right? Make a plan and make sure that you do as much as you can, at least in this month. So you're in the process of completing whatever you owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So that's why a lot of people they offer qaza salat on the Laylatul Qadr, which is a very good thing, right? The mustahab should be there, but the wajib has to be there. The difference between has to and should, right? So we have to take care of the wajib and then the mustahab. But when we ask the ulama of akhlaq, they say do both. Because sometimes we pick one. We say, okay, do I want to go, for example, on the Laylatul Qadr, do I want to do offer the 100 rakat prayer, or do I want to offer, for example, a couple of days of qaza prayer, right? The ones who are lazy like me, they're going to say, well, qaza prayer is wajib, 100 rakat prayer is mustahab. I'll take wajib over mustahab. But ulama of akhlaq, they say no. Do the wajib and then do the mustahab as well. Why? Because if you just do the wajib, you're cleaning out your previous history, right? But you're not gaining anything from doing the mustahab. So again, in the long run, you're losing, right? So do both of them. Put in some extra time, put some extra effort, put some extra energy, and then do both of them. Which actually brings up the topic of why should we attend the majalis. Because we know when a group, it's much easier to do all of this stuff. When you're all alone at home and probably you have everything ready for you, for example, to sit back and relax. When you're in a group, when somebody stands up and starts leading the prayer, everybody joins, automatically you get that extra boost in your spiritual deeds and amal, right? Versus when you're alone at home, more likely there are more temptations to sit back and relax, watch a movie and do anything that everybody does and they're having spare time, right? So this month, again, it's a month of fresh start. First start from where? Go back to that pure innate nature that we have, in which it works as a compass. It always points out towards one direction, and that direction is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah we can benefit from this month. I just don't know how much of time do I have. Can anybody tell me? Another 10? Inshallah. So recite another salawat. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to talk about the bare minimum level of fasting. Inshallah, this month we can make an effort and just elevate this topic of fasting to the second level as much as we can, right? So in the second level, we talked about pertaining one's vision, hearing, speaking, walking, talking, the way they actually behave, right? The very first thing is controlling our vision, right? The very famous hadith, it says, النظرة سهم مسموم من سهام إبليس فمن تركها خوفا من الله أعطاه إيمانا يجد حلاوته في قلبه. This hadith is mentioned in Mustadrak al-Wasail, volume 14, page 268. It says another, this sight, this every look that we have, right? Every picture or every frame that we actually take on every given time, right? سحم مسموم من سحام إبليس. It's like this poisonous arrow from the shaitan. Meaning that everything that we look at has the potential of being a sinful whisper from the shaitan. Why so much concentration? Because it says every, right? It says another, it talks in general, right? Meaning that every single time that we look at something, there is a potential of shaitan actually entering that vision and sort of diluting that vision in a point that it becomes a sinful scene for us. Why so much concentration on vision? Because they say whatever we see, we tend to like. And once we like, we make a will for it in order to gain it, right? So that's why we have to control our vision. If you do not control what we see, if you do not control what we hear, if you do not control where we go and who do we talk to, what are we basically doing? We're opening the door for the shaitan to come in and just take over the control of ourselves. So the very first point is the control of what we see. And living in the West, what we see becomes a little bit challenging, right? In Islamic countries, it may be a little bit easier. In the West, it has its own challenges. So from the morning that we wake up, when we want to go out to work, when we want to go to school, when we want to go out, after doing our daily chores and daily routines, right? Perhaps we can make this condition for ourselves, that today, for this month, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to control what I see, right? As I'm driving, I'm going to control, what I will look around, right? I will control, for example, as I'm going to the center, right? And then the more of this control that we have, you will see the benefits, you will see the results when you actually stand up for doing or offering the prayer. You will see the results when you start reciting the Quran. A lot of times, the common question is this, that when I recite the Quran, I don't feel that connection, right? So usually we tend to think because we don't feel the connection. Why? Because, for example, we do not understand the Arabic language. But that's not true. Because in a hadith we have, if you don't even know how to recite the Quran, what to do? Open the Mus'haf, open the Quran, and just look at the ayahs. Right? It says the ayah of the Quran has this light, has this nur within it. Right? Meaning that the connection can be there even if you do not know the Arabic language. Is that possible? Say yes. So a lot of people, when you see them for the first time, you have absolutely no idea who they are. But all of a sudden you find this sort of attraction within yourself towards that person. You like them. You don't know why. You never spoken to them, you never seen them before, but you like them, right? You say this connection is possible. Yes, knowing Arabic language is going to make it a lot more. It's going to make it a lot more comprehensive if I understand the Quran, and that's what we should do, right? As the followers of the school of the Ahlul Bayt, everybody should be able to, must be able to recite the Quran and understand the Quran, right? But let's talk about a hypothetical case. If I don't know Arabic, if I don't understand the Quran, why when I open the Quran, I don't feel that connection? What's the reason for it? So it's not the language. Inshallah, it's not the intention. Intention is qurbatan ila Allah, is pure, right? So what's the problem? We say you have to look back at your days and weeks. You have to see what are we used to, right? Are we used to, for example, watching movies every time that we find some free time? Are we used to watch the news every spare minute that we get in our work? Are we used to read all of these new comments, all of these new likes, and using different social media apps, right? So that's when our vision gets used to these different things, right? Especially in the plural sense, it does not find the taste and the sweetness of actually reciting a book such as the Quran. The book of the Quran, inshallah, we'll talk about that one day, is the only book that we say it has actually been sent by revelation. When we talk to our fellow Christians, they don't say the New Testament or the Testament are revelation. They say those are aspiration, right? Specific companions, they were inspired by the text of those words. Basically, what we're saying about the Quran, say no, these are the words